Aye.
Okay. Is that good? I guess I'll just stand like that. Okay, great. All right. So I wrote one poem for this evening, kind of set off 2009. Get that mood going for poetry. As was mentioned, I'm the editor as well of the poetry anthology that we do every single year for Artists for a Better World. So if you are a poet among us, please be sure to contact me and get involved in that. Because this is called Let Your Muse Be Free. Did you just say poetry is boring? How can you say the likes of Eliot, Shakespeare, and the thousands of souls who share their wisdom is boring? Boring, monotonous, tedious, irksome, tiresome, humdrum, I can hear your thoughts. Webster says boring is something so uninteresting that it causes mental weariness. It implies feelings of listlessness and discontent. Does poetry really do that to you? Well, I am here to dispel the myth that poetry is romanticism encapsulated by tragedy wrapped in soliloquies of unbearable rhymes. Don't you remember the serenity of being lulled to sleep? Or the joy of the flowing meters of childhood nursery rhymes? Was it the horror of Humpty Dumpty as he had a great fall, knowing how difficult it is really to put somebody back together again? Was it Mary and her little lamb, little boy blue, or the wonderment of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star that shattered your love? It didn't happen there, did it? So tell me, look back, when was it? Was it your youthful years when you penned your pain to the tear-stained pages of a shattered relationship? Or when you scrawled your deepest thoughts on the back pages of your text during class? Was it the time you were so inspired to write that you had an epiphany so momentous you couldn't share as its depths were beyond translation? Your salvation, you say? The only constant that carried you through your adult-controlled youth? Okay, so it didn't happen there. Then when? Was it as you drove down the strip with your radio cranked to the tunes of your favorite singer as he added to the musical mantra, to the poetic mantra of your day? Did it happen when your song was no longer an enchanted duality of your togetherness, but a broken chain that reminded you of him or her every time it played? Could it be when you lay contemplatively in the grass with music scintillating from the pores of the transmitter that lay snugly by your giddy body? What do you mean those were the best days of your life? Do you see what happened? Poetry didn't become boring. Somebody ripped the muse right out of your yearning body and left you a skeletal shell of discontent. Look back deeper, tell me when, because there are 100,000 poets waiting for you to wake up and rejoin the human race that is not the 11 o'clock news, or the newsprint sheets designed to create chaos and corruption. I can see you know now. It was then, that class, that teacher, that book, that infamous and almost unnoticed day that left you without for so long. Okay, so now we know. Well, guess what? That class is over, that teacher is gone, and that book still sits in the literary shelves as a genius statement that will carry forward centuries of wisdom between a tiny cover. To be or not to be? Guess what? That is still the question. Mankind has been searching since humans walked the earth whether he is to be or not to be. The answer is to be, and it is time you did. To be a poet, a friend, a lover, a mentor, and to be true to yourself. So get out your pen, look up a word if you have to, make the dictionary your best friend, because it is everywhere for a reason. And poets are screaming at the top of their lungs and not being heard. So who does that leave making an impression in our society? Is it that you do not look good in long shirts and v-necks? Or that flour doesn't stay in your hair? Or that boardroom is simply no place for your creative insights? So you placed your pad hopelessly in the nightstand for the shame and the neglect of your calling was simply too much to bear? If you need to assign a word such as boring, look around and designate it elsewhere. Give it to housework, homework, or anything that ends in work, and globally remove the arbitrary allocation that has attached itself to poetry and given it an undeserved stigma. Well, it is time to change this trend, my friend. For today is the day that poetry will launch 1,000 minds, spirits will awaken, and you have officially become a member. And I welcome you on our journey, and I want you to know that despite the educational rantings of those who have chosen not to be, but are simply victims of the same tragedy that had befallen you, or of those that tell you that what you write is no good and continue to suppress and invalidate, that not only will you read poetry, but for today, I grant that you are a poet. You are to be, and it is time to let your muse be free.